Stay a while and listen.
Hey everybody, Necroxis here, and I know this is a long time coming, but before we find out what the actual expansion to World of Warcraft is tomorrow, I want to give my envisioned perfect scenario of what I would like the Eye of Azshara expansion to be. I know we don't know for sure that it's going to be Azshara, but a lot of the signs seem to be pointing toward that way, and I've always wanted to do an Azshara expansion, so this is my envision of the Eye of Azshara expansion. One final thing to note is that I did struggle heavily between how much I should go into in-depth in this video. I decided I ultimately would not go that far in-depth because both that I know it's going to be largely invalidated by whatever we learn tomorrow, but also because, frankly, I don't want to have to edit a gigantic 2-hour-long video about what I think the Eye of Azshara expansion is by being super specific here and there, and ultimately, like I said, none of that actually mattering. So, alright, so here we go. Here's the Eye of Azshara expansion. I am going to start with the pre-expansion event, and then I'm going to go through all of the zones in the initial launch and what I think the raids should be, and the basic story of each zone. So, here we go. The pre-expansion event begins for Horde players by going to Orgrimmar and talking to Vol'jin, who is there with Thrall. He tells the player that they have received a message from the Echo Isles that something has gone wrong, although they don't have any more information. So you travel with Vol'jin and Thrall to the Echo Isles, and as you are landing, you see that a massive amount of Naga have begun to invade the Echo Isles. After you do a couple of quests where you kill some Naga and retreat to Darkspear Hold, you realize that there is no possible way you could stop the Naga invasion, and when you are making your, quote, last stand at Darkspear Hold, Lor'themar Thuron and Aether Sun Reaver arrive via a portal, and tells the group that this was just a distraction, and that actually what's happening is that the Naga are attacking and invading Orgrimmar. Once you're back in the capital, you find out that most of it has already been taken over by the Naga, but Lor'themar tells them that Gallywix, of all people, has a plan to save the Horde capital, although he needs time for his solution to arrive. The player then helps various heroes of the Horde take back several districts in the city before pushing the Naga back out the front gates, upon which they can see an enormous force outside led by Battle Maiden Nazjatar. Several Naga Sea Witches at her command begin channeling a spell that destroys the gates of Orgrimmar, preventing an escape back into the city. With all seemingly lost and no way to escape, the final stand takes place where you and the Horde heroes fight against the Naga, until at the last minute Gallywix arrives with his flotilla of the Bilgewater cartel goblins. Many ships, many zeppelins, and including a large battleship with the Big Betty cannon on it from Bilgewater Harbor in Azshara. Gallywix and his forces then unleash their arsenal upon the Naga, which does so much damage that Battle Maiden Nazjatar is forced to retreat, although she laughs off this, quote, victory and tells them that Queen Azshara has raised Nazjatar from the depths of the sea and is near to achieving a weapon that will render the Horde and Alliance irrelevant. With no assembled navy at this point to attack Nazjatar, Gallywix convinces Vol'jin to let him take his flotilla to Kezan and find the Undermine and secure the vast resources that the Goblin capital has there. The agreed upon plan is to have Gallywix and the player with the Bilgewater cartel to travel to Kezan to secure the Undermine for the Horde, while Warchief Vol'jin builds up the Horde navy to then go after Azshara. Vol'jin says he will contact the Alliance to let them know what happened and to see if they would possibly send any kind of aid. Meanwhile, for the Alliance, they are summoned to Stormwind Keep by Varian and are told they just received an urgent missive from Warchief Vol'jin. He says that the Horde have lost the Echo Isles to the Naga, and large parts of Orgrimmar were damaged in a surprise attack from the Naga themselves. In this moment, Khadgar arrives through a portal with Tyrande and informs them that Teldrassil is under attack by the Naga. Varian, Khadgar, Tyrande, and the player go through Khadgar's portal and arrive at the Temple of Moon in Darnassus, where Malfurion is waiting for them. He tells them that the Naga have taken over most of the city and are beginning to push toward the temple. Reports indicate that the Naga attacked out of nowhere, easily taking control of Ruth'aran village at the base of Teldrassil, and pushing the few Night Elves there back to the portal and into Darnassus. Khadgar tells them all that Jaina has a possible solution to stopping the Naga from taking control of Darnassus, although he does not like the idea. However, they need to buy her some time to prepare this weapon. The player then helps various Alliance heroes retake terraces of Darnassus from the Naga, eventually pushing them back through the portal to Ruth'aran the village. Going through the portal themselves, the group then sees the massive force of Naga that have been assembled there, led by none other than Battle Maiden Nazjatar. She appears behind her giant force of Naga and has her Sea Witches destroy the portal behind them, cutting off their connection to Darnassus. When all seems lost and in a final battle to kill as many Naga before dying as possible, Jaina Proudmoore then arrives and reveals that she has brought 2 artifacts that can stop the Naga from destroying Darnassus. She reveals the Stormstave of Antonidas, which has been charged by the power of the Thunder King back in Mists of Pandaria, as well as the Focusing Iris, which has been secured in Dalaran. Using these two together, she creates a massive elemental tidal wave, which destroys a large part of Najira's forces, and begins using her Storm Stave of Antonidas to attack Battle Maiden Nazjara herself. This forces Nazjara to retreat, but she tells him before she does so that stopping her really means nothing. Queen Azshara has already raised Nazjatar from the depths, and will finish the work she started during the War of the Ancients. Afterwards, Tyrande demands they travel to Nazjatar and kill Azshara for what she's done in the past, but also what she intends to do in the future. The leaders agree, however, Varian says the Alliance's navy is still split up after returning from the Siege of Orgrimmar, and it will take some time to reassemble it. He says even with the full might of the Alliance, he is not sure if they will be able to traverse the South Seas with Azshara's influence having expanded. Jaina responds by saying she is going to have the Kirin Tor fly Dalaran to Kul Tiras, renowned during the Second War for its naval superiority, and bring them officially once again back into the Alliance. Varian and Tyrande support this idea, but Khadgar protests, saying that she is once again acting as a member of the Alliance and not as the neutral organization that the Kirin Tor should be. Jaina waves him off and leaves through a portal, declaring that she is the last surviving Prodmor, and as such, she should be able to have the loyalty of whoever is left at Kul Tiras, and she will bring them into the Alliance's fold. And so starts World of Warcraft, the Eye of Azshara. Now I'm going to cover each zone by their level and explain the story, starting out with Kul Tiras. Jaina does indeed fly Dalaran to Kul Tiras' last known location, although it is no longer there. She wants to use a location spell to find Kul Tiras, but doesn't have the proper ingredients. So the player goes through Dalaran collecting all of these ingredients, but also during this time you get to see the various characters' opinions on what Jaina is doing to the Kirin Tor. Khadgar is not happy about it at all, and you can see the Council of Six assembled with Khadgar and Karlane, who is another member of the Council, saying that they are really disappointed in how Jaina has seemingly completely thrown off the shackles of neutrality and is willing to join the Alliance full stop. Other characters like Varisa Windrunner and Archmage Modera are completely fine with what's going on because they believe that the Kirin Tor should ultimately be in the Alliance as they once were. Finding actual Kul Tiras, the group has realized that the island has floated toward Tel Abim, Kezan, and the newly risen Nazjatar because of the Cataclysm. So, the group travels to Kul Tiras and they realize it is in dire straits. Naga and other forces have pushed the Terrasians all the way back to their capital, Borealis. The rest of the island is taken over by various forces including Naga, Murlocs, and some Zandalari trolls, which will be a little bit of a foreshadowing for things to come. After arriving in Borealis, the reception that Jaina has is mixed. After Admiral Dalen Prodmor, her father's death, there was no clear successor to the kingdom, so a council of governors had taken over ruling Kul Tiras. Some of them are siding with Jaina, seeing as she is a Prodmor and should be the rightful queen of Kul Tiras. Others are not sure and are more antagonistic to Jaina just coming in and declaring herself the leader. Most of this zone's story is going to be spent reclaiming it from the Naga, as well as fighting some Zandalari forces. The Zandalari are fighting against the Naga as well as Kul Tiras, and this will earn some of the respect of the governors who weren't too sure about Jaina. The finale of the zone begins with the most popular governor who is opposing Jaina, who I don't have a name for yet, ends up hiring assassins to kill her, which you stop. You then confront the governor, who ends up taking his own life because he does not think Jaina should be leader, but his plot to kill her has failed. The very final conclusion is Varian Wrynn arriving via Dalaran, which has been parked, for lack of a better word, near Borealis, and officially inducting Kul Tiras into the Alliance with Jaina as their queen. This prompts Khadgar to protest Jaina using Dalaran for official Alliance business. Jaina at this point has had enough of Khadgar's insolence and instead calls the Council of Six together and proposes to officially and definitively have Kirin Tor rejoin the Alliance. The Council of Six votes 3-2 in favor of doing so, with 1 vote abstaining. Khadgar and Karlane vote against it, while Jaina Modera and Ansarum Runeweaver vote to join. Archmage Vargoth, the newest member of the Council, abstains. Khadgar and Karlane denounce Jaina and the Kirin Tor publicly, and take the small faction of dissenters that support them and leave the Kirin Tor, forming the Kirin Tor Outcasts, for lack of a better name. Before leaving, Khadgar beseeches Varian to allow the Alliance hero to accompany him and the Outcast to the Broken Isles, where he believes he has tracked Gul'dan from the alternate universe. Varian agrees, and you're sent on your newly constructed ship with Khadgar and Karlane to travel there as the zone's story ends. This zone is levels 100 through 102. Meanwhile, the Horde player goes to Kezan, and this is levels 100 through 102, and is a Horde-only zone where Kul Tiras was Alliance-only. Gallywix, the player, and the flotilla sail toward Kezan, with Sassy Hardwrench, Hobart Grapplehammer, and Mida Silvertongue joining them. Naga eventually attack the flotilla before you actually get to Kezan, destroying all of the ships and only leaving 2 of the Zeppelins left, alongside Gallywix's Uber Zeppelin where he is staying. There is a scene where Gallywix refuses to allow escaping goblins onto his Zeppelin, and they are inevitably dragged to their deaths in the depth of the sea by the Naga. At Kezan, the outside is also attacked by the Naga. Sassy and Hobart fight off the Naga with his crazy technology, including the Poultryizer and the Mecha Shark X, which brings its debut back from the Lost Isles way back in Cataclysm. The Naga use their Coatl to destroy the two regular Zeppelins, and Gallywix orders the group to enter the city and look for survivors while he stays outside, safe and sound in his Uber Zeppelin flying high above. From a gameplay perspective, Kezan is just a zone that's really just Undermine itself and the entrance, and Undermine itself as a zone is really not defined by areas, but more by floors, as Undermine is built deep underground. The first few floors are abandoned and are taken over by Murlocs, Naga, Kobold, and even some Kavaldir who have been rooting about. You do kill them as you try to find the rest of the surviving goblins. On the fourth floor, the group discovers the Undermine populace, and they are in dire straits as well. Nearly half of the capital has been abandoned due to the Cataclysm and the invading entities because of it. Only two of the Trade Princes are actually left alive, Trade Prince Steamweedle and Trade Prince Denias. The rest of the Trade Princes and Princesses have killed one another in an Undermine civil war which happened between Cataclysm and now, basically because Undermine has been unable to get ships out to get more resources, and thus they are stuck starving in the city and have been going after one another for the city's diminishing resources. Trade Prince Steamweedle is hospitable to the Bilgewater cartel when they arrive, while Trade Prince Denias is convinced they are here to take over the capital for Gallywix. Steamweedle tells the group that Denias has purchased basically all of Undermine's remaining security force, and that with that force they have seized most of the city's assets, causing the city to begin dying from starvation. Mida suggests tricking Denias and pretending to be agents for hire willing to betray Steamweedle and Gallywix, then turning around and killing Denias himself, thus preventing some kind of bloody battle between their forces. Gallywix radios in and says this is a good plan, and you have to eliminate Denias before he'll come down into the city. After attacking the first bank of Kezan and stealing a bunch of macaroons to pay Denias off, the group travels to his hideout. Although about halfway through the travel, Denias figures out the plan, and you need to fight your way to him, culminating in a final battle as he enters the souped-up shredder, and you kill him. The finale of the zone, however, happens as the revelation of Gallywix enters the city with a mechanized force that he was waiting for outside, consisting of shredders, robo-scorpions, and shock troopers. He reveals that he was secretly backing Garrosh and the True Horde while pretending to support Vol'jin, because if he can play both sides, no matter who wins, he comes out on top. He secretly got Siegecrafter Blackfuse's technology this way, and Steamweedle realizes that Gallywix told Denias about their plan to kill him, to make the two groups fight one another. Gallywix, reveling in the fact that his plan has come to fruition, shoots and kills Trade Prince Steamweedle and reveals he plans to control all of Undermine now on his own, and that the Horde and the Alliance are no longer useful tools for him, so he has no use for them. Hobart, meanwhile, throws an EMP grenade and disables a large part of Gallywix's forces, and the final fight happens. It's against Gallywix and his spider tank, who fights against the party with the various goblin technologies and including shredders that Hobart has brought himself. The player enters one of these and fights Gallywix, and in the end he dies, and Sassy Hardwrench becomes the new Trade Princess of the Bilgewater Cartel, after Hobart says he has no desire to become the Trade Prince. Mida Silvertongue, on the other hand, decides to stay behind and Undermine and take over the Steamweedle cartel now that Trade Prince Steamweedle is dead. The party boards Gallywix's Uber Zeppelin parked outside and communicates with Vol'jin, who accepts Sassy as the new Trade Princess. With the Bilgewater flotilla gone and the Horde Navy still assembling, Sassy's first command as Trade Princess is to travel to the nearby Plunder Isle, home of the Bloodsail Buccaneers, to seize some of their riches to then build up the navy once again from the Bilgewater side to eventually go and attack Azshara. And this is how the zone story ends for the Horde. The next zone, Plunder Isle, is levels 102 through 104, and the story is almost exactly the same for both factions. However, the introduction for the Alliances is a little more in-depth. For the Alliance, the introduction actually is you traveling to the Broken Isles with Khadgar, Karlane, and the Kirintor outcasts, although before you get there you are attacked by a massive force of Zandalari ships, forcing you to ground on Plunder Isle and escape their onslaught. At this point, the Alliance has to contend with trying to hide from the Bloodsail Buccaneers, who immediately are out to purge any interested party from their stronghold. Same with the Horde player, who arrives shortly after. To keep the chronology correct, the Horde player actually sees the Kul Tiras ship that the Alliance player used to land there, as they are landing on Plunder Isle themselves. The Alliance player managed to set up a camp relatively hidden in a cave system near where they landed, and shortly after, the Horde player finds it. The two factions work together to survive the Isle, but also try and steal some of the immense wealth the pirates have accumulated. Essentially, from this point going forward, the storyline works exactly the same for both factions, although your quest giver changes. The player works with both Sassy Hardwrench, Holbald Grapplehammer, as well as Khadgar and Karlane to get their goals achieved. As the player makes their way through the zone, they realize that the Bloodsail Buccaneers leader, Duke Falrevere, has gone slightly off the deep end. He has slaughtered captains under his own command for the most minor of offenses, and has shored up defenses in Bloodsail Hold, the capital of the zone, where he spends most of his time idolizing the treasures he has collected there. Eventually, the group comes across Duke's daughter, Jessie Falrevere, who approaches the player with a small contingent of pirates loyal to her, and explains that some kind of madness has overtaken her father, and that in addition to hoarding all of the treasures the Buccaneers have been gathering for him, he's building an armada to attack the Alliance and Horde. He believes that merely plundering trade ships is no longer enough for him, and that there is no better treasure than what he can be gained by trudging through the ashes of Stormwind and Orgrimmar. The zone ends with the player, the characters alongside Jessie, taking the fight to Duke Falrevere. In the process, Khadgar and Holbald work together to destroy their armada with magic and technology, while Karlane and Sassy try to secure treasure for their respective factions. In the end, the Duke retreats into the deepest part of Bloodsail Hold, where he will be encountered there as the final boss of the 5-man dungeon of the same name. With Khadgar and Karlane agreeing to give the Alliance player their share of the treasure in reward for helping them, both factions are given a ship by Jessie to deliver their reward to their capitals, while she prepares her meager crew to invade the Hold and depose her father. Khadgar then tells the Alliance character they still must continue on their mission to track Gul'dan, while Vol'jin sends Sassy Hardwrench a missive to tell the Horde player to aid Khadgar doing the same thing, but afterwards the Horde Navy will be assembled and they will be sailing on Nazjatar. Varian in turn sent a similar message to the Alliance player, stating that after they are done helping Khadgar stop whatever Gul'dan's doing, the Alliance fleet will be assembled, and with Tyrande and Malfurion at the head of the fleet, they will be sailing to attack Nazjatar. The next zone will be the Broken Isles, level 104 through 106, and in this storyline, alternate universe Gul'dan has traveled to our universe and is looking for the Tomb of Sargeras. He's heard of what our universe's Gul'dan was looking for there, and believes that there was more there than just the Eye of Sargeras. Even though the tomb sank when Illidan buried Maev's forces there, Gul'dan uses his power to raise it back up and enters it. The rest of the zone story is tracking Gul'dan's movements before he gets into the tomb, and dealing with various creatures on the Broken Isle. Skeletal orcs encountering Drak Thul, who is still a neutral ally to the players. Naga are fought across the zone, as well as the Zandalari, who land halfway through the story and ultimately take over the entire zone, killing Drak Thul in his camp and revealing how dangerous they actually are. During all of this, Maiev Shadowsong is revealed to be back and on the Broken Isles, having learned that alternate universe Gul'dan is here seeking something from the tomb that cost so many of her watchers their lives. The players will encounter Maiev during the zone, although she is not hostile toward them, as she watches them fighting against the Naga and Gul'dan's small force of demons he summoned to help him. The Tomb of Sargeras itself will be a 5-man dungeon with Gul'dan fought as the final boss, although he will eventually escape after obtaining some kind of artifact that will help him. Other bosses in this dungeon would include demons and the twisted spirit of Ny'alotha, Maev's second-in-command. Maiev would play a big part in this dungeon during the Ny'alotha fight. She actually has a mental breakdown and becomes temporarily insane. We're going to ignore that she was insane in Wolfheart here because that was stupid. And after a part of the boss fight where you actually fight her, who is egged on by Gul'dan from the shadows, she does survive and calms down. After the dungeon is finally over, she tells the player that she will remain on the Broken Isles for a little while at least, to finally lay the remains of her watchers to rest, as they should have done long ago. At this point, the player is then given a choice to go between the Drowned Reaches, another island-based shipwreck cove that Azshara has raised up from the depths, or go right to Zandalar. The reason that the players might want to go to the Drowned Reach is because Nazjatar itself is protected by some magical force that cannot be penetrated, although the Alliance and Horde believe some kind of artifact in the Drowned Reaches will allow them to bring down this barrier and enter Nazjatar. On the other hand, the Zandalari have become extremely antagonistic, have been attacking the Alliance and Horde the entire time they've been going after Azshara, and the revelation happens where Zul, the prophet of the Zandalari, has revealed this massive navy that the Zandalari have, and they need to be stopped. If they don't, they're going to kill everybody before they can actually take the fight to Azshara. Zandalar's zone is basically what you would expect. Half the zone is actually sinking because we've known for a while that the place is sinking. As you progress through the zone, it is entirely a neutral endeavor with Horde and Alliance heroes. Vol'jin shows up on Zandalar to help the Horde, while while Tyrande actually lands for the Alliance and helps. The two heroes meet together and agree to work together to stop the Zandalari, and through the zone you are dealing with these various forces. And as is stereotypical with the Zandalari at this point, they are sacrificing what little Loas they have left to empower themselves, except for one, Zanza, the Loa of the Zandalari who you see in Zul'Gurub, is actually actively working with the Zandalari to help them achieve their goals. You will be fighting against Zanza and Zul, the Prophet, through across the zone, and eventually it leads to a big climactic finale where you realize that Zul has killed King Rastakhan in a coup and has taken over the entire Zandalari force, equivocally becoming its leader. And as he's beginning to summon the spirit of Hakkar once again to serve for them, the Alliance and Horde attack the capital of Zandalar on the island, and in a big final climactic battle, Zul faces off against Vol'jin, both of them using their power over the spirits and the Loa to fight one another, and in the end, Vol'jin actually fails, Hakkar is summoned, and Zul and the spirit of Hakkar and Zanza force the Alliance and Horde to flee off the island, although they do declare they will be coming back for the first raid of this expansion, which is the Depths of Zandalar, which is the capital of Zandalar. And you go into the raid where you fight against all of the bosses you've been seeing so far. You fight Zanza, even though after you beat him, he retreats, and Zul ends up sacrificing him. You fight Hakkar, his spirit, his physical form. He has come back. You fight and permanently kill Hakkar. And finally, you end up fighting Zul at the very end, who reveals, after everything has happened, that the reason he is a prophet and he has these prophetic dreams and can picture the future is because he secretly has been corrupted by the old god N'alotha, who has wanted to destroy Azeroth with the Cataclysm, and thus gave this image to Zul to make Zul sow chaos in the world of Azeroth and help achieve his goal even further. You find this out at the very end in the boss fight with Zul, and during when this happens, Vol'jin is there, and Vol'jin ends up stopping Zul and helping you kill him, although in the process, Vol'jin himself loses his life, and so the war chief of the Horde ends up dying. And there will be ramifications for that, obviously, going forward, but I'm not really going to be talking about like what I would consider patch content in this video. The long and short of it is, Lor'themar ends up becoming the war chief, because Thrall doesn't want to do it, Bane feels he's not experienced enough, Sylvanas doesn't give a shit, and so Lor'themar steps up to the plate and declares he will become war chief, and so he does. Meanwhile, in the Drowned Reaches, if the Alliance and Horde players tend to go there, it is a giant zone full of shipwrecks, and it is eventually populated by these undead creatures who look very different from the Scourge or the Forsaken. They are mostly alive, but their flesh is kind of melting off their bodies. They have a greenish tint to them. They seem kind of like if the Scourge and the Kvaldir got together and had a child, and they are called the Drowned. And you basically spend this entire zone story with Malfurion trying to find out what is going on in the zone and trying to find this artifact, and at the end of the zone you actually find out that the artifact is this sigil from N'Zoth that is using to empower the shield around Nazjatar, further cementing the fact that Azshara and N'Zoth's forces are helping one another. Sure, the zone story may not be as important as Zandalar's in the end because of the raid that it happens at Zandalar, but is equally as important to the storyline because you need to get the shield down to enter Nazjatar. So basically the choice is, after you do the Broken Isles, you can either choose to go to the Drowned Reaches, or you can go to Zandalar, although you could do both if you want to, but in the end the final zone does happen to be Nazjatar, which is the capital of Azshara's forces, and throughout this zone, you spend predictably most of it fighting against the Naga. During the zone, you also fight against a lot of Old God forces, again further cementing the alliance between N'Zoth, his Old God forces, and Azshara. Now in this game, Nazjatar is referred to as not only the capital, but also the entire zone surrounding the capital, and in my version specifically the capital itself will be called Zenashari, in reference to what the capital was before the Night Elves became Naga. So during the zone story, you are fighting against various forces of the Naga and the Old Gods. Some Earth and Ring figures show up because they still want to free Neptulon, who has been captured by Azshara's forces. Malfurion is there with Tyrande, and for the Horde, Thrall and Bane are their representatives. And through this storyline, you do find out that Neptulon is still alive. He's being used to give Azshara a further control of the sea, in addition to the fact that Azshara has the power of the Old God, further in addition to the fact that the remnants of the Well of Eternity, and this is the big reveal of the zone, when people thought the Well of Eternity exploded and created the Maelstrom, what actually happened is the remnants of it sank to the bottom of the ocean, and this is what has given Azshara such power over 10,000 years, further cementing her own incredible amount of power on her own. And this becomes increasingly apparent when, halfway through the zone story, Azshara begins using these remnants to completely stop the Maelstrom. And by the way, Nazjatar happens right next to the Maelstrom. So as you're going through the zone, you can see like the whirling Maelstrom in the distance. And in a cutscene, Azshara begins using the power of the remnants of the Well of Eternity. The Maelstrom completely stops, and she casts this massive spell that does something. You know that it does something, but you don't know what it does at this point. So as you fight your way through the zone, you're getting closer to the capital. You do realize that Ny'alotha is being held in this elemental prison for similar to how the Titans imprisoned the elemental lords when they came. And somehow N'alotha has managed to help Azshara do this because Ny'alotha is, for some reason, not allied with the old gods this time, much like Therazane was not in Cataclysm. So during this 5-man instance where you go through the dungeon and you help Ny'alotha be free of Azumat, who you finally kill at the end of this 5-man dungeon, he frees himself, and that basically is the end of the zone story. You free Ny'alotha, and he presumably is going to help you in the raid of the zone, which is in Ashari, going into the actual capital, where you go and fight against what you think is Azshara. And during this raid, Azshara and the Old God forces are fighting against you. You fight various heroes of the Naga. You fight Battle Maiden Najira, who was shown up in the introduction to this expansion. She also shows up through the zone, but you fight and kill her finally here in this raid. During the final raid boss, you fight against Azshara, but she's also summoning in Old God forces, and she's channeling again more magics into the remnants of the Well of Eternity. That is where this fight takes place, right at the Maelstrom, or where the Maelstrom used to be, right at the location of that, to summon some massive spell that you don't know what she's doing yet. During the fight, you do realize, though, that Azshara is trying to summon N'alotha himself into the world of Azeroth, and during this boss fight, even though Azshara does escape at the end, and she does succeed into some regard, what happens is Malfurion sacrifices himself to stop N'alotha from coming physically to Azeroth, and Archdruid Malfurion Stormrage is killed in this raid. So the Horde and the Alliance have now both lost a major figure in each faction. And although Malfurion's sacrifice does prevent N'alotha from coming to Azeroth, what actually ends up happening is Malfurion's druidic magic stopping the Well of Eternity's magic actually causes a combination, and N'alotha and his seemingly fortress or location where he is present of Ny'alotha is brought into the Emerald Dream, the Rift of Alm, the only place left that we have yet to deal with the Emerald Nightmare, and that is where the expansion, the patch content takes place. Patch 7.1 is the Rift of Alm, the entire zone. We get to go there finally, and this is how they wrap up the Emerald Dream stuff alongside Azshara, because the Rift of Alm really is the only part left of the Emerald Dream we have to deal with. And what happens is that N'alotha begins to spread his influence from the Rift of Alm into the rest of the Emerald Dream, and that is a big, big problem. And the final raid actually takes place in Ny'alotha in 7.2, and there are some crazy-ass shenanigans going on there. You find out that Azshara actually has just summoned N'alotha to take the power of him for herself, and it is revealed that she actually is not under his control, but she has taken control of him and his forces. And the final raid boss of the fight is Azshara herself, in all of her power and her glory. She has the power of the remnants of the Well of Eternity. She still has the power of Ny'alotha. She has managed to steal him before he was freed. And in addition to that, she has the power of N'alotha. And as you kill her, she uses, during the fight, actually what's happening is she's using the remnants of the Well of Eternity to cast these crazy magical spells to try and stop the heroes, and the zone and the expansion story ends with her death. However, using the Well of Eternity in such a way has once again caught the attention of the Burning Legion, whose agent Gul'dan is still on Azeroth, and the artifact is revealed to be the other Eye of Sargeras, the other artifact that has been left there. It is revealed that there were two, and Illidan only knew of one, and he uses it to summon the Legion, and that is what leads into the next expansion, the invasion of the Burning Legion on Azeroth, where we go to Argus. So, there we go, everybody. I know that this was basically like a giant fanon jerk fest where I'm just like, this is all the things that I think it should be, but If it's even half of what I've laid out here, then I will be extremely happy. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts on what's going on here. I do recognize that the first half of this video was more structured than the second half, and it's because there's not enough, I feel like, Naga and like Old God lore for me to be more specific, whereas for Kul Tiras and stuff like Plunder Isle and Undermine, there's a lot of specifics that I can use to tell you exactly what I think should happen. But, yeah, so that's it. That's my theory on what the Eye of Azshara should be. We're clocking in just over 30 minutes, which is pretty awesome. I wanted to go just about this length of time. So, thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know your thoughts about anything I've said here and what you hope for the expansion, which we're going to find out about in less than 24 hours. I'm super pumped. So, what do you think about my theory? What do you think the next expansion should be? What is the story, basically, of the next expansion? What should it be? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, but until next time, I'm sure you will see me tomorrow, where I give my reaction to whatever we find out at the announcement. So, it's really exciting, even though I've been criticizing World of Warcraft lately for a lot of the shady shit that it's doing. I'm still very excited about what we're going to find out in, what is it? At this point of this recording, it's in 23 hours. So, thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time, and farewell.